okay? Unless the property is large enough that the division will leave each partner with a proper share. Okay, so in the Mishnah we said, let's say they inherit a mansion, they want to split it. You can only split it if each one's going to have a proper share. Now, what does that mean? So the Gemara says, "In bahen kedei lezeh mahu." What's halacha if it's not large enough for each one to get a proper share? What's halacha? Can one partner force the other to split the partnership or not? Okay, so let's say we own a mansion together. We're partners. I say I want to split, and the other guy says no, I don't want to split. So can I force him to split?
Yes, we were able to force him to put a wall. But that was for the case of
the courtyard. Yeah, right. Here we want to split a house in half, right? And the Gemara says depends. If each one will have a proper share, enough space to use it as a normal house, a normal place, you could split. What if it's too small? Can you force them to split? The Gemara says, Rav Yehuda Amar, it dina de good or agud. Yes, there's a law that says one partner can say either you set a price for my portion or I will set a price for yours. So now you can ask me, when two partners own a place and you can't split it 50-50 because it's too small each part, so what do? Either I buy you out or you buy me out. I don't want to be your partner anymore. So the halakha says you could force somebody to do that. You could force someone to say, as a partner, it's too small to split 50-50, half down the middle. So therefore what? We're going to go and buy me out or I buy you out. That's it. You have to decide. It says the note, number 3. This translation follows Rashi. Bet Yosef explains that Rashi understands good to be a derivation of gedad, cut. Let's cut the tree. In our context, it means set a price. Cut the price, right? Okay, skip the paragraph, skip the parentheses. Thus, when a partner proposes good or agud, means either you set a price and buy it, or I'll set a price for your share and buy it. Bet Yosef develops Rashi's idea to show how an equitable settlement is reached. Of the two partners, one is given the right to set a price, and the other is given the right of buying or selling at that price. And the reluctant partner is given the choice of which right he wants, and the other right goes to the other person. This assures that the ultimate purchaser will pay a reasonable price. The reason is that the person setting the price has no idea whether he will eventually sell or buy. He will therefore set an equitable price so that either way he will not lose money on the deal. Tosfot and Aruch present another interpretation. They translate good as pull. Okay, according to them, the partner proposing division sets a price and tells the reluctant partner, either you pull and buy my share, or I will pull and buy your share. Tosfot here presents two opinions, whether the partner can set any price he wants. Re maintains that he can do so. If the other partner refuses to pay, the first partner can then buy his share for that price. Ritzvah objects, however, that if this were so, a rich partner could force his partner to sell by setting an exorbitant price for his share. Cites an opinion that the court themselves therefore assesses the property's value and sets a fair selling price. Okay, so you go and tell the guy, listen, we both own the house together. I want to split it 50-50. I can't. We can't divide it in half. We can't build two buildings in one place. So what are we going to do? We're going to buy each other out. What's the price? Let's go see what the market price is. Whatever the market price is, that's what we'll pay. Either you buy it or I buy you out. Okay, beseder. Says the Gemara, Rav Nachman Amar, Rav Nachman says, no. Let dina de good or agud. There's no such law. Either you set a price or I set a price. If one partner puts forth such a proposal, the other can reply, I wish neither to buy your portion nor to sell mine. I just want to retain the partnership. So you see this? So therefore, in such a case, the Rav Nachman says they stay put. They stay put, and too bad, so sad, you can't force the other guy to buy out. I remember this happened similar. I told you guys, Orach Chaim on Main Street, the Rabbi Lander wanted to buy the whole block. He ended up having every house, it was like 20 houses. On the block, he had the ability to buy all of them except for one. There was an old lady like halfway through the block. She didn't want to sell. And then he's like, what's the two of you? Come on, what's the big deal? I'll buy you out. He was willing to pay a little bit extra. And still, she refused. She says, I have my right. She stayed there. Ended up being that he only built 10 houses in. Halfway through the block, he stopped building. He would have built the whole block, he said. But this lady insisted, and she didn't let him build on the block. So therefore, same thing over here. If he insists, if he wants, he says, no, I don't want to sell, I don't want to buy. I want to keep my half and let it stay like that. Okay, it's not usable for both of us. I don't care. I don't want to buy, I don't want to sell.
Can you send someone to take care of her?
I don't know what circles of business you do. I'm Rava le Rav Nachman. So Rava has a problem with Rav Nachman. He says like this: According to you, that there's no law that a partner can insist, you set a price or I set a price. I have a question. So according to you, what are you going to do in a case where you have a firstborn son and a regular son? Their father died, and he left them a slave or a non-kosher animal, right? He left them a chuchke. Okay, so what's halacha? It's obvious too much trouble for a firstborn ordinary brother to take turns working with these things. So obviously you should agree that they should agree to sell it and split the money, right? You can't force both of them to take care of one of these things. Let's do 5, doctor. Let's do 4 actually. Sorry.
Number 4. Okay, this is a big one. When 2 or more sons inherit their father's estate, they become partners in it and must either share the property of the estate or divide it. The Mishnah in 11a notes, however, that jointly held property is divided only if each partner will be left with a usable portion after the division. Otherwise, they must share it. Thus, if 2 brothers inherit a kosher animal, for example, it can be divided because after it is slaughtered, each brother will be left with a usable portion of meat. If they inherit a non-kosher animal, on the other hand, they obviously cannot physically divide it. They must share it instead by taking turns working with it. Rava therefore asked Rav Nachman, how can a firstborn and an ordinary brother share a non-kosher animal or a slave that they inherited? Can't they do 2-to-1 ratio? I have Monday, Tuesday, you have Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, you have Thursday.
I like it. I like your answer. Let's see. The Gemara is going to say something similar to what you're saying.
What about the selling it and they show the profit? Let's say they sell
so that's what Rav was asking. Rav Nachman said by two partners who cannot split. It's not enough space to split. So he says, we said that Rav Yehuda says one partner can tell the other, or buy or sell my part, right? Either I buy you, you buy me. So Rav Nachman said, no, no such thing. You can't do that. Rav is telling Rav Nachman, what do you mean? By the 2 brothers, they should be able to force each other to sell. So to the partners, they should also be forced to sell. So the Gemara, that's his question. But let's see what the doctor maybe has a good answer.
Rava directed his question to Rav Nachman and not at Rav Yehuda, because according to Rav Yehuda, the question is not difficult. According to Rav Yehuda, if jointly held property is not divisible, one partner can force the other to either sell his share or buy the other. Thus, the brothers who are partners need not share at all. One will simply take the entire slave or animal and compensate the other for his portion on it. According to Rav Nachman, however, a partner has the right to insist on retaining the partnership and sharing the property. How? Although, as the Gemara, can the firstborn and ordinary brother share these things fairly?
Yeah, Neri, you with us?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, 5.
The Gemara inquires only how a firstborn and ordinary brother could share these things fairly, and not how 2 ordinary brothers could do so. The reason for this, explains Rashi, that the firstborn and ordinary brother have unequal shares in the animals or slaves. It is thus more trouble for them to share than for 2 ordinary brothers who have equal portions. So Spud explains as follows: a firstborn is entitled to work with an animal or a slave twice as much as the ordinary son. If a firstborn and ordinary son were to share a slave or an animal, then the firstborn would use it for 2 days out of 3, whereas the ordinary son would use it for only 1. This notes the Gemara gives the firstborn an unfair advantage. He gets the opportunity not only to work with it for twice as long as his brother, which he is entitled to do so, but also to utilize it in ways that the ordinary brother cannot. For example, traveling with the animal and sending the slave on a business to places too far away for a profitable 1-day trip.
Hey, can send to Atlanta, right?
Yeah, because he has more cost efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Rava asked only how brothers inherited their father's property can divide these things fairly, not how any 2 partners who entered their partnership voluntarily can do so. Apparently, Rava has assumed that if people voluntarily became partners in these things, there might indeed be no way for them to dissolve the partnership. He argues only that heirs who never asked to be partners must have a way to dissolve the partnership.
Okay, good. So if you have a Bechor and you have a non-Bechor and they inherit a slave, how are they supposed to split this thing properly? So the Gemara says, must be they could force each other to buy or sell their portion. Says the Gemara, no. Amar le, Rav Nachman said to Rava, I'll tell you. Shani omer oved leze yom echad, leze shnei yamim. I'll tell you. Now you could tell the older brother, the Bechor, say, I'll work it, the ordinary brother will work 1 day out of the 3, and the other brother will work 2 days out of the 3, even though it's inconvenient. According to Rav Nachman, that's the only possible solution. So just like we tell this guy, too bad, you can't force me to sell, let's just split the days. So too by the two partners. You could tell the other partner, you can't force me to sell. We got to use it how it is. It is how it is. It's inconvenient. It's uncomfortable to split this house 50-50. But it is what it is. You can't force me to buy me out. You can't tell me, oh, either you buy me or I buy you. You can't do that. Rabbi Nachman says.
Why are there 3 segments again?
What?
Why are there 3 segments?
3 days, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, so over here, the note said,
Just as an example, like that.
Right.
That you have twice.
So 6 day week. 6 day week.
So you split it in half.
Right, I know, but because Bechor is like 2 people.
So because it's looking before has to take.
So it's as if there's 3 people, right? And he takes 2 portions, right? And then you just do the same thing twice.
Doesn't it depend on the type of animal or the type of slave?
Well, what do you mean? Why? Some slaves will be able to do more and do less?
Yeah, that. And then,
Okay, so if they assess that they could, yeah, you're right. If they assess that they could. Says the Gemara, they asked on now Rav Yehuda. So Rav Nachman defended himself. Now we ask on Rav Yehuda. Meitveh, they asked on Rav Yehuda, who says that 2 partners can force each other to buy each other out. Misha chetzio even chetzio ben chorin. Let's say you have a half slave, a slave who's half slave, half free. Doctor, how do you have such a thing? A guy is half free, half.
He has 2 owners. He can either buy himself out the first half,
Right.
or he gets emancipated.
Right. So now, you have a slave that's owned by 2 people, right? No, he's a goy. He's a goy who was bought as a slave. He went to the mikvah and became a Jewish slave. Okay, meaning a Jew slave.
Become a Jew slave?
Yeah, a Jew's slave. Yeah. So now what happens? He has all the mitzvahs like a lady, right? He keeps the mitzvahs. They can't break Shabbat. He has to keep kashrut and whatnot. Fine. Now the question is, one of the masters freed him, and one of the masters did not free him. Okay. So now he's half slave, half free. Now who is he allowed to marry? Nobody. He's not allowed to marry a goyish slave because he's half Jew, and he's not allowed to marry a Jewess because he's half slave. So he's nitudan. So actually, the Gemara Masechet says it's a sword to leave a guy like this. You have to.
You force the
other guy, right.
The welfare of the community, they find ways to.
Right. But look what the Gemara says.
So, Rabbi, if you have a slave, even
Procreation,
if
what they're
he's
looking
Jewish, you can make him do whatever you want. So you can bring him a
That's-
woman and tell him, okay, no,
That's if there's one owner. That's if there's one owner. But here there's 2 owners, and one freed him and one didn't. You understand? So he's in the middle. He's in like
He's free or not?
right. Says the Gemara, Misha chetzio ever chetzio ben chorin. Someone who's half slave, half free. Oved et rabo yom echad v'tatzmo yom echad. He works one day for his master and one day for himself. Divrei Beit Hillel. These are the words of Beit Hillel. Bet Shammai omrim. Bet Shammai says no. Takantem te rabo et tatzmo lo takantem. You fixed the problem for serving his master, but you didn't fix the problem for himself because he can't get married to anybody. He can't marry a female slave because he's half free. He can't marry a free woman because he's half slave. So what do? Yivatel, he's not going to have any wife? Horrible. No, you can't do that. The whole world was created just for Puruvu. Interesting. The Gemara says that the whole world was created just for Puruvu. Interesting. Shenemar, because it says, Loto bara la shevet yatzara. God did not create the world to be empty, he created it to be inhabited. Ella, so what do? Bet Shammai says,
Somebody else can inhabit it.
no, but everyone has an obligation to inhabit
Yeah,
it.
but somebody else would get the obligation that we're talking about. Yeah.
Says the Gemara, Ella, kofin et rabo sindo ben chori. Bet Shammai says you forced the other master to free him, so that way he can go and have a wife.
And if he doesn't want to,
Okay, so he's a sinner. V'kotvin shtar chetzi damav. And the slave must write a bond to the master for half his value, meaning he has to buy himself out. He has to buy his portion.
regardless, even if he buys his portion, he still needs to get emancipation in order to be able to get married.
Good, right.
Until he gets that, it's impossible for him to
Right,
get
so he
married.
needs to get from his from his master, then he can get married, right? Chazru Beit Hillel le'erod k'divrei Beit Shammai. And because of this claim that Beit Shammai made, Beit Hillel agreed to Beit Shammai and said, you know what? You're right. So from the logic of service, it makes sense that he should serve his master and serve himself one day. But then you're right. There's a side issue of marriage, so that I agree. We should give in and we should force the guy to buy himself out. So what do we see from here? So the Gemara says both Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel agree that if a half slave were able to marry, his master could have insisted on retaining a share on him. The slave could not have declared, "No, let me buy. Either you buy me out or I buy you out." He couldn't have said that. He would have worked one day and would have worked for himself one day. From this we should learn the 2 partners cannot force each other to dissolve the and say to buy each other out. That's a question on Rabbi Yehuda.
In the legal world, a partnership cannot be dissolved. It will be dissolved if one leaves.
What do you mean? One leaves?
A true partnership,
Yeah.
like an LP,
Yeah.
if a partner leaves, the
Yeah.
entire company gets dissolved.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't stand.
You can't but I could buy somewhere now, no?
That's in a different.
Uh-huh.
That's in a single. That's in a LLC.
Yeah.
As members.
Uh-huh.
But in a true partnership,
Yeah.
if one goes, that's it.
The whole thing's done.
All things done.
Okay, good. Let's do 7. Avi, you with us?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If a Jew acquires a Gentile as a slave, the Jewish master may circumcise him. And
Oh yeah, he has to do a Brit Milah also, right?
with the intent that he thereby become a slave. The slave thereupon assumes the legal status of a Canaanite slave who is obligated to perform all the religious commandments binding on Jewish women. These obligations are somewhat fewer than those binding on Jewish men. A half-slave, a half-free man refers to a Canaanite slave that belonged to two partners, one of whom freed him, or to a slave whose master freed half of him.
Oh, so interesting. You have one master, and I only free half of you. That's interesting case. Okay.
Such a slave owns himself jointly with his master.
Yeah, go do one more.
The partnership of the master and slave is administered by dividing the rights to the slave according to time, each of them enjoying full monetary
Proprietorship.
on the day that the slave is in his possession. Thus, the half-slave serves the master one day and works for himself on the next day.
Oh, but the Gemara says the only reason why he's allowed to get freed and buy himself out is because of marriage issue. Sounds like from a proprietorship issue, there's no problem being stuck working for him, working for yourself. Same thing with my partners. It should be that you shouldn't be able to buy the other guy out. You just have to use it the way it is. Says the Gemara, no. Rabbi Yehuda says this case is different. By our case of the slave, Shani Hacha Da'agud Ika Agud Leka. In the case of the half slave, it's different than the case of partnerships. Why? Because such a slave can declare, I will set a price and redeem the half of me that is a slave.
So you can set a cheaper
But he cannot say, you set a price and buy my free half. Because a free Jew cannot be sold. You hear this? So what's by partners? Me and Neri are partners. What do I say? Listen, Neri, me not to use this one place. Me and you two people. I can't. 2 chefs, 1 kitchen. Either you buy me out, or I buy you out. Respectfully. So the Yehuda says that works. But by a slave, why not do the same thing? By a slave, why does the Gemara say a guy is a slave and he's half free, half slave? Why can't he tell the master also? Either you buy me out or I buy you out. Either I buy you out, meaning I buy myself back, or you buy my other half and I become a full slave again.
You cannot do that.
Why not?
You're not allowed to make yourself a full slave because you already have a Jew.
Oh, good. So that's what the Gemara says. Rabbi Yehuda says, you can't ask me from the slave case because it's a sword to do that. You can't do the same deal by a slave. By 2 partners, you could do that kind of
His
deal.
ultimate goal is to be completely free and be able to marry a Jewess.
Right.
That's the ultimate goal.
When does a Jew get sold as a slave? Only 2 cases.
When he doesn't have money to pay.
Or
When the Jew gets sold as a slave.
he gets stole and he doesn't have money to pay back, he goes as a slave. Or
His child,
he's poor, and he sells himself as a slave because he has no money. But if you're not in those 2 cases, it's a sword to sell yourself. Okay? Good. Let's do one more line and we'll finish. Says the Gemara, Tashma, come and learn a refutation against Rav Yehuda from this Mishnah. Shnei achin, 2 brothers, echad ani, echad ashir. One was rich, one was poor. Their father died and left them a banya, or he left them an olive press. And then they start renting it out. They rent out the banya, they rent out the olive press. What do? How do you split the rent? The rent is divided equally, half. Hasan la'atzmo, but if the father made it for himself, for his personal use, so if their father was proprietor and he was renting out these places and now they take over this business, so they split the rent in half, right? But if the father used to use it for personal use, Hare Ashir Omer Lani, the rich brother can say to the poor brother, Kach lecha avadim yirchatzu b'merchatz. Acquire slaves for yourself to heat the bathhouse, and let members of your family bathe in the bathhouse. Kach lecha zetim ubo b'aseh beit abad. Acquire olives for yourself and come process them in the olive press. But you think about it, a poor man, does he have slaves?
He doesn't need
No,
slaves.
he's poor.
He has to pay for the slave.
Right, he doesn't have money. He doesn't have money for them.
He's hustling him.
Yeah, listen, but does he have olives? He has a big field of olives. He needs to use the olive press? No. So basically, the rich brother says, "Listen, bring your olives, bring your slaves. You could use it. Basically, like go to the gooch, get out of here. Like you have no use for this stuff. Let me use it, right?" Although the poor brother has no use for the bathhouse or the olive press, still he cannot force his wealthy brother to buy out these things. This then refutes Rav Yehuda, who says you can compel one other partner to sell. So what do you see from here? It's sad. It's inconvenient. What do you mean? If the father was using it for personal use, the wealthy brother can claim, no, we should also use it for personal use. Therefore, let's use it for personal use. But the poor brother's like, I have no personal use for these things. These things are luxurious. I have no ability to use these things. Oh, well, the brother says, oh, too bad, so sad. Why can't, according to Rita, why can't the brother force him and say, listen, let's buy each other out and do something else with this?
Used prior as a use for personal use.
Let's see what the Gemara says. Gemara answer, Hatam nami good ika agud leka. In this case also, the poor brother who cannot afford to buy his brother's share can only declare, you set a price and buy more my portion. But he cannot declare, I will set a price and buy your portion. Since he cannot make an offer to buy the rich brother's portion, that's the reason why the deal doesn't work. But technically, if he had money, Rav Yehuda says, even over here, you'd be able to buy the other person out, just like by the two partners. Baruch Amen. Amen.